TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. This construction company in Moss, Tennessee specializes in erosion control. They do seeding in soil using hydro seeding and hydromulch, minor excavation, silt fencing, traffic control, and construction signs. I had the privilege to hang out with Nick Melton of TKM Incorporated, and when I mean hang out with him, I mean spend some personal time. His boys and I and him did some tree climbing at a park in Salina, Tennessee. We did a little Brazilian jiu-jitsu in a pavilion at the same park. We've had breakfast together, and I got invited to work out with them in a CrossFit gym, and they nearly killed me. And I've also been to church with Nick Melton. Nick likes to say that TKM stands for the King's Men. Because you see, his mission, his life is that they serve the King. And if you want this guy and their company to do some work for you while they serve the King, you can contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. The King's Men. SJ&L General Contractor specializes in asphalt, demolition, concrete finishing, and heavy hauling. This family-owned business is licensed in Alabama and Tennessee. You can contact them for any of your construction needs. 931-433-4660. That is 931-433-4660, or 3 W's and a dot, sjnl.com, www.sjnl.com. SJ&L General Contractor is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. In the varied history of Lonnie Elizabeth Jones as an employed person, she's had a varied and sundry different types of employment. She's was a stadium person for the Rome Braves when she lived in Rome, Georgia. Oftentimes, she would accompany me to do things on the ropes course. We would load up the four-wheeler. We put the generator on the four-wheeler. We'd load up the big drill with the 39-inch auger bit and the staple hammer. The staple hammer is this large, short-handle sledgehammer that we use to pound the 8-inch staples into the trees so people can climb. Lonnie Beth always called that hammer the hammer of Thor. And she would go with me down into the valley on Kill Mountain, and I would climb into the trees. And just before I would get up off the ground, we would review with her how she would do a vertical rescue if I got in trouble and, had an accident or passed out or had to be lowered to the ground. And so I'm up off the ground, 35 or 40 feet, and I'm working in the tree, and I holler down, "Hey, tie this onto this rope." And she could tie the knots that I required her to tie. And I'd bring my equipment up. And, we were up there one day, and I need the hammer of Thor. I said, "Lonnie Beth, I need the staple hammer." "What's a staple hammer?" "The hammer of Thor." "Well, I'm using it." "What are you using it for?" "Well, I'm breaking hickory nuts." "Well, honey, we didn't come up here to break hickory nuts. We didn't come up here for you to Hulk smash hickory nuts. I need that hammer to put these staples into the tree." Later on, because she had helped me in this area, I offered her a job on the ropes course. We paid our basic instructors, people who could, do simple low element stuff, and people who knew how to belay. We paid them $100 a day to work for us. People who could do a vertical rescue and tie all their knots and facilitate certain things, I thought was pretty generous. We paid them $200 a day to work on the course. And I said, "Lonnie Beth, you can have a job with me this summer working with me on the ropes course." And she said, "So I'm the person who wears a skirt and heels and has a clipboard, and when people get off the bus, I tell them what to do." I said, "No. If you work on the ropes course, you work with ropes. You learn how to climb, you learn how to belay, you learn how to rescue." So instead of working with me on the ropes course, she takes a job, gets some training, goes to the class, and has a job as a lifeguard. Now, I've got this memory that I'm picking her up, and I want to say that we're picking her up to go to Lineville, Alabama for my grandmother's funeral. And I think it's during the time that I was sick and wearing the apparatus after my intestines ruptured. But we were driving, because I remember doing my grandmother's funeral with that colostomy bag, and her children, my dad, And my aunt and my uncle and all my cousins had sort of agreed that they would like me to officiate or say some words at our grandmother's funeral. And so we're going to go to Lineville, Alabama. And Lonnie Beth's working at that Blossomwood Pool. And I think we took her to work. And then we're just going to pick her up on our way out of town. So her shift is supposed to end, and we drive down, and she comes out to the car, and she is mad as a hornet. With no pun intended, she's mad as a wet hen. She comes stomping out of the lifeguard room and around the fence of the pool. And she jumps in the back seat of the car, and she slams the door. And she says, well, this is stupid. This is dumb. And I mean, she's torqued out to 4,000 foot-pounds. She's spinning around 1,800 RPMs. And I said, what is going on? She says, well, some dumb girl jumped off the diving board in the deep end of the pool and she couldn't swim. And I had to go in and drag her out, and it ruined my hair. I said, you do realize that that's what they pay you for. They're not paying you to sunbathe. You signed up to jump in the water and mess up your hair when you took the job as a lifeguard. Now, I get it. You had other plans. You had other agendas. You had other intentions. You had other ideas. You had other expectations of what you were going to have to do, what you're going to be required to do. But being a lifeguard means you jump in the water and you get people out. And you get people out regardless of how they got in trouble. It's not just the people who are good swimmers and due to no fault of their own, they got in trouble. It's not just the people who are smart and make mistakes. You get to get in the water and get people out when dumb kids who can't swim jump off the diving board. You sit in the big tall chair so you can see everybody. And then if something happens to anybody, if somebody gets in trouble, if something goes wrong, you jump in and mess your hair up because that's your job. And it's inconvenient, and it's unpleasant, and it's frustrating and probably even disappointing if you had your hair just right. But yeah, you sit in that big chair not because you're closer to the sun, but so you can see the people that you're guarding. Nobody wants to be the one who gives all the time. No one wants to absorb all the time. No one wants to feel the burden of sacrifice all the time. Nobody likes to or wants to be the one in a relationship who is submissive. Yet, when we take on the job of being a spouse, if that's what becomes necessary to save it, that's what we do. That's what we signed up for. I remember when LB got married and her group of girls were praying with her, and she was studying with another young lady. They were kind of doing some meditations and some devotionals together. Just shortly, I think it was the night before she got married, she told Lonnie Beth, as they prayed together, she said, this is the last night that you're allowed to be selfish. Because once you become somebody's spouse, you can no longer be selfish. Plans get changed. Our hair gets ruined. Our hands get dirty. Our clothes get messy. And we do unexpected, inconvenient things. Because the role of the leader, the role of an example, the role of the role model, the role of the neighbor, the role of the spouse, the role of the friend, or simply because we are fellow humans. And although the task is unexpected, there is an expectation that because we are in that role, we are the ones who jump in. In one of the Bruce Willis movies, he's rescued this kid and they're running toward danger instead of away from it. And the kid says, you're that guy. Why do you have to do this? Why do you have to risk your life? Why do you have to inconvenience your plans? Why do you have to be in harm's way? And Bruce Willis responds, yeah, I'm that guy. And you're that person. You're that person who's made a commitment. You're that person who's got the responsibility. You're that person who has the training. You're that person who has the influence. And because that is you, because you're that person, you're going to do those things that are inconvenient and messy and mess up your hair and change your plans. Now, please understand, I'm talking about people who are qualified. I'm talking about people who actually are lifeguards. Our young people are so caring and they're so benevolent and they have such good hearts that oftentimes they put themselves in harm's way when they shouldn't be the people who should be doing it. See, if you're not qualified as a lifeguard, if you're a weak swimmer, if you need floaties and you see somebody in trouble or somebody's in trouble, then you connect them with resources. You throw them a life ring, you throw them a rope, you use the big pole that they skim the water with. You hand them resources or you connect them to a real lifeguard. But if you're not a strong enough swimmer to get in the water, then under no circumstance do you get in the water with them. You've got to know when it's time to call for help. You got to know when it's time to ask for help. And if you play lifeguard and you aren't one, if you play lifeguard and you're not qualified, if you get in the deep end with people who are in deep and you have to have floaties to swim, then something way more important than your hair gets messed up. And I needed to add that as a caveat because I'm not saying that this is your job or your responsibility to get in the water unless you're qualified to get in the water. And if you're qualified to get in the water and that's your job, that's when you get in the water. And so please understand that I'm not trying to be dissonant here. I'm not trying to do mixed messages, but I'm talking about people who actually have the responsibility and the job to be the lifeguard. Now, the person who needs rescuing, the person who needs a lifeguard, it doesn't matter if the person needing you is dumb. It doesn't matter if they shouldn't have gotten in that deep or doesn't matter if they shouldn't have jumped in the first place. What matters is they did. Or if they just simply need you, if they are in need rather than just in deep, they're just in need. And because you are in a position in their life, you're sitting at a vantage point in this person's life to see them when they get in too deep, when they fall in, or you see them in a situation and they just simply can't get themselves out. Because you are sitting there from a place where you can see them, by default, it becomes your job to be involved. Now, it may be that you're involved to the level that you give them resources or you connect them with people, or it may be that you're the person who has to go in with them. People don't make appointments to drown. They come to the pool for different reasons. They come to the pool with different expectations. And while they're at the pool doing the things that they're supposed to be doing at the pool, then something goes wrong. And when that something goes wrong, because you're in their life, because you're in that position in their life when it happens, then regardless of our plans, regardless of our schedules, regardless of our expectations, and regardless of our agendas, and regardless of our hairdos, because we're there in a person's life at that time in this position, even though it's unexpected, there is an expectation that we do something because we are the ones who have the opportunity. Therefore, we are the ones who have the responsibility. And it's our job to jump in. The mission of Heritage Christian University is simple. They aim to advance the churches of Christ by equipping servants through undergraduate and graduate programs. Heritage Christian University produces effective communicators of the gospel, focusing on evangelism and a commitment to Scripture. Heritage Christian University is accredited by the Association for Biblical Higher Education and offers the following degrees: Associate of Arts in Biblical Studies, Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies, Master of Arts, Master of Ministry, and Master of Divinity. Since 1968, Heritage Christian University, formerly International Bible College, has offered affordable degrees in biblical studies, allowing graduates to thrive in their ministries without the burden of loan debt after graduation. For more information about Heritage Christian University, visit www.hcu.edu. That's 3 W's and a dot, hcu.edu. Heritage Christian University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707. 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3 W's and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the donate here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure, is sponsored by us. What? We sponsor ourselves? Is that even legal? Check us out on Amazon. You can have access to the titles of Pedagogue, the youth ministry book by Lonnie Jones; Cognitive Spiritual Development, a Christ-centered approach to spiritual self-esteem; Grappling with Life, Controlling Your Inside Space, a small essay using the principles of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to talk about psychological and emotional self-defense; If I Were a Mouse, a children's book written and illustrated by Lonnie Jones; and then The Selfish Reel, a very short story about a decision. Also, you can check out our YouTube channel to see archived lessons and presentations from across the country, some videos with rope tricks and knots. Don't forget to visit the Facebook page, 550 Guys, to learn about the little rope men that we make and that we invented and that we make. And then be sure to click like, subscribe, and share. This is Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.